What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. So in this video, we're going to go over our NFL power rankings from week 7. So now that week 7 is finished, we are going to go over our top 10 teams in the NFL. Very similar to what we've done in the past. We'll start with the number 10 team in the NFL and then work down our way to number 1 when it's all said and done. So at number 10, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders just keep chugging along at this point in the season. They've maintained their focus despite John Gruden resigning from his head coaching spot just a couple weeks ago, and they've won 3 straight games since. Derek Carr has been playing phenomenal in that stretch, and the game against the Eagles, he completed over 90% of his passes. Granted, the Eagles aren't that good of a team, but still, being able to complete 90% of your passes against any NFL defense, that's definitely a feat to be proud of. When I look at the Raiders as a whole, they're currently at the top of the AFC West at 5-2, and I think that they deserve some love by being in the top 10 at this point in the season, and that's why I have them at number 10 in our power rankings. So at number 9, I have the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens probably had their worst performance of the entire year against the Bengals in week 7, and I was really surprised that the Ravens were dominated in this game, specifically in the second half. Going into the second half, they were only down 13-10 at halftime, and just in the second half, they couldn't stop Jamar Chase. They couldn't stop Joe Burrow. They couldn't really stop that Bengals offense because the Bengals just absolutely lit up that Ravens defense in the third and fourth quarters. And for the most of the day, Lamar couldn't get into any sort of rhythm offensively. And the offensive line, they allowed 5 sacks as a unit. It's like I said, defensively, they got torched by the Bengals offense. They allowed over 520 yards of offense to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase probably had their best games in their respective careers at this point against that Ravens defense. So this is a bad performance from the Ravens. There's no other way to say it. But with that said, I still believe that they are a team to be reckoned with in the AFC. And it is really going to be a battle between the Ravens and the Bengals for the top of the AFC North this year. Granted, the Bengals did get the edge in this matchup against the Ravens, but I think the Ravens should not take this loss too hard. Still have a long way to go in the season, and I think they'll be able to bounce back from this loss against the Bengals, and that's why I have them at number 9 in our power rankings. So number 8, I have the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills were on a bye week in week 7. In week 8, they'll play against the Miami Dolphins, and look, they're playing against the Dolphins next week, so I expect the Bills to bounce back in a pretty significant way after that really tough loss to the Titans in week 6. I'm still of the mindset that the Bills are one of the best teams in the AFC, despite that loss to the Titans in week 6. When you've got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Dawson Knox, Cole Beasley on that offense, that's a tough matchup for any defense to go up against. And defensively, they're one of the most well-rounded units across the entire league. So this is a team that could definitely compete for a Super Bowl by the end of the year. And after this Dolphins game, they have some really weak competition to go up against. I think they play the Jaguars and the Jets after this Dolphins game. So there's definitely some easy wins for the Bills to get here. Like I said, one of the best teams in the AFC still, and that's why I have them at number 8. So number 7, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals had probably one of the most impressive performances of any team last week in the NFL. They beat the Ravens by 24 points on the road, and they put up over 40 points in that matchup against the Ravens. That is definitely a performance to be proud of, no matter who you are. I thought Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, they just could not be stopped whatsoever in this game. And I thought that both of them had their best game in their respective careers at this point, even though that they're in their relatively young stages of their career so far. Defensively, I thought that they were stout against the Ravens. They were able to get 5 sacks on Lamar Jackson, and they held the Ravens offense to only 17 points. So those are also some impressive feats to go in favor of Cincinnati here. When I look at the Bengals as a whole, they are young, but they are proving themselves to be a formidable foe against anyone they play against. Like I said with the Ravens just a couple minutes ago, they are definitely going to be in a battle for that top of the AFC North when it's all said and done. But the Bengals are on a roll, man. They earned my respect with that close loss to the Packers a couple weeks ago, and then they followed it up with this impressive performance against the Ravens. I think they put the NFL on notice with this performance against Baltimore, and that's why I have them at number 7 in our power rankings. So at number 6, I have the Tennessee Titans. The Titans just handily defeated the Chiefs in week 7. There's no other way to say it. And the Titans have been on a really good stretch the last couple weeks. They beat the Bills in week 6. They followed it up with probably a better performance against the Chiefs this past weekend. And I think one of the most impressive feats from this KC game in particular was the fact that they held KC's offense to only 3 points, which is the worst offensive output as far as scoring goes that the Chiefs have ever had with Patrick Mahomes playing at quarterback. Granted, Derrick Henry did not have the best game that he's had throughout the entire season, but I thought that Ryan Tannehill, he stepped up admirably for them. I thought A.J. Brown had a solid performance as well for their offense. But it's like I said, I think really the biggest takeaway from this game was the fact that Tennessee's defense, which is kind of subpar to kind of say who they are as a defensive unit, I thought they had probably the best performance that they'll have the entire year, being able to hold Casey's offense to 3 points. And I think that's definitely something to be proud of. The Titans are sitting at 5-2. They're at the top of the AFC South, and I think they've kind of distanced themselves from any other team in the AFC South at this point. And they're just on a roll, man. And I got to give them respect for that. And that's why I have them at number 6. So at number 5, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Similar to the Bills in week 7, the Cowboys were on a bye week in week 7. So their next game will be against the Vikings on Sunday Night Football in week 8. So when I look at this matchup between the Cowboys and the Vikings, this is probably going to be a high-scoring affair for both teams, simply because both defenses, they give up points like Oprah gives away free cars on her show. But nevertheless, the Cowboys have a legitimate MVP contender in Dak Prescott. Their run game has been phenomenal with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And Trayvon Diggs at this point is a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. Dallas is by far and away the best team in the NFC East. Granted, they were on a bye week last week, but still, the fact remains the Cowboys are a top 5 team in the NFL, and that's why I have them at number 5. So at number 4, I have the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams beat the Detroit Lions in week 7. Granted, I wouldn't say this is like their best performance that they've had the entire season, but still, the fact remains that the Rams just find ways to keep winning games. I thought Matt Stafford had a solid game against Detroit. He threw for over 330 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. I would like to see a little bit more run production from the Rams, simply because they only had like 45 yards of rush offense against the Lions. So I think that's something that they need to improve upon moving forward. But I have to say, Cooper Kupp has been absolutely phenomenal this season, and he just lit up that Lions secondary. He had 10 catches for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. If you got Cooper Kupp in your fantasy league, he's just been an absolute dream for you the entire season, and he continues it once again. The Rams are definitely one of the best teams in the NFC. Granted, they're not the best team in the NFC West at this current moment in time, but still, they are going to be a formidable foe against any team they go up against moving forward. When you got Matt Stafford lighting up like he has, it's going to be a tough team to stop moving forward. So even despite the fact this was not their best performance against the Lions, I still think that they're a very good team moving forward, and that's why I have them at number 4. So at number 3, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Bucs had probably one of the best performances in week 7. They were playing against the Bears, and to be quite honest with you, the game was over by halftime. They were up 35-3 at halftime. And when I look back at this game, I thought the Buccaneers offense, they just find ways to just keep on scoring points. And this was despite the fact that Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown were both out with injuries in this game. And Tom Brady still threw for 4 touchdowns in this game. Mike Evans had a career day against the Bears in this week 7 matchup. He had 3 touchdowns receiving. I mean, offensively, this team just keeps humming. Defensively, I believe that they forced like 4 to 5 turnovers in this game. It's just the Bears were just giving up turnovers left and right, but the Bucs were capitalizing on it, and they were turning those turnovers into points. So when I look at the Buccaneers right now, they are on a roll despite the injuries that they've had in the secondary. And Tom just continues to marvel at 44 years old, and I don't see him slowing down in any way, shape, or form unless some sort of team can get a pass rush against them, and very few teams have been able to get that this year. The Buccaneers are at the top of the NFC South at 6-1, and I don't really see any sort of team really competing with them at this point. And they've really set themselves apart from most teams in the NFC except for two of them. And that's why I have them at number 3 in our power rankings. So number 2, I have the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, they just keep finding ways to keep it rolling. They've won 6 straight games. Everybody remembers that week 1 debacle that they had against the Saints, but they've won 6 straight games since. I wouldn't say that this was a phenomenal performance that they had against the Washington football team, but still, I got to give it up to Aaron Rodgers. I thought Aaron Rodgers had a phenomenal day with his performance. He completed about 75 to 80% of his passes, threw for about 275 yards, and had 3 touchdowns in this game. But really, kind of the one concern that I had from this game was they just didn't get a lot of run yards whatsoever from their running backs. I believe as a rushing attack, they only had somewhere about, I don't know, like 55 to 60 yards of rush offense. So there will be something that I think they need to improve upon moving forward. But the Packers are legit. They're the best team in the NFC North by a mile. And they are playing against the Arizona Cardinals in a great Thursday night matchup in Week 8. Granted, they will be without Davante Adams in that matchup. Davante Adams, he tested positive for COVID, so he will not be playing in that game. But no matter what happens in this matchup against the Cardinals in Week 8, I still believe that the Packers are a top 5 team. They've been playing like it the entire season, and I have no worries about this team moving forward, except for maybe the running attack that they had in Week 7. But when you got Aaron Jones back there, they'll be able to find ways to integrate him better, and I believe that he'll have better performances moving forward. And with that said, that's why I have the Packers at number 2. At number 1, they've been a mainstay for the last couple weeks. At number 1 is the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals have just been phenomenal the entire season. They maintain their undefeated record after just demolishing the Houston Texans in Week 7. Once again, Kyler Murray was just absolutely sensational in this game. Threw for over 260 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, almost completed about 75% of his passes. And even though that, Kyler had a great game, I thought they had a great game from their rushing attack. I thought as a whole, they were phenomenal. They rushed for about 175 yards on the ground to go along with what Kyler did in the air with his 261 yards. And we also got to see Zach Ertz playing his first game with the Cardinals, and he was able to score a touchdown to go along with his first game as a Cardinal. The Cardinals are a phenomenal team. Like I said, they'll be playing against the Packers on Thursday Night Football, so that'll be a great matchup to watch. And I think no matter what happens in that game, kind of similar to what I said with the Packers, the Cardinals are a top 5 team, and I don't see that changing anytime soon unless they absolutely fall apart. But I mean, when you got Kyler MVP, that was funny. I almost said Kyler MVP. He has been playing like an MVP candidate at this point. He's probably the front runner at this current moment in time. Arizona's on a roll, and I don't really see that slowing down anytime soon, no matter what happens against this game against the Packers, and that's why I have them at number 1 in our power rankings. So with that said, you guys, that'll wrap it up from here. That is our NFL power rankings from Week 7. So if you guys like that video, hit that like button below. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, hit that subscribe button below. Any sort of support that we can get for the channel, Kevin and I definitely appreciate it. With that said, you guys, just thank you guys for tuning in to watch the video, and we'll see you guys later.